Hello and good morning, everyone. This is another episode of Transformation Thursday, and I'm Boss. I'm your host. Um, and in this session, my guest is Petra Fisher. She calls herself a cranky old fuddy duddy who claims to know shitloads about LinkedIn. And today, I will have a conversation with her about turning points in life, um, how we deal with change, how she overcomes resistance to change, and what she's creating for her future. Petra, I'm really happy you're here.
Yeah.
And please introduce yourself.
Well, thanks for having me. I think you've already introduced me. According to the daughter, I've been old for 5 years and I've been officially old since yesterday. But that didn't stop her from making me buy her cocktail. So, generally, I drink tea, as everybody knows. And yeah, I work with people who want to become really visible, attract clients, and doing so with LinkedIn as their main marketing channel. Um, that and drinking tea, that's really about it.
Okay. So, what do you do with your people on LinkedIn?
Um, so ultimately, okay, I mainly work with business owners. I work with some C-suite who want to position themselves better, but mainly business owners. So ultimately, what every business owner wants is more clients. But then you got to do marketing, and most of us didn't go into business to do marketing, right? There's something we really love, and that's what we do. And then you suddenly, you get some clients, get some word of mouth, and then at some states maybe you don't, and that's when um, people usually start working with me to be conscious and proactive about how to show up online. And then I mainly focus on LinkedIn so that pretty much people start talking about you, because some people say, oh, my client isn't on LinkedIn. And I'm like, I don't care, because your client's neighbor is on LinkedIn, their best friend is on LinkedIn, their adult child or their parent. So when you show up and talk a lot about what you love talking about most anyway, because otherwise you wouldn't have gone into business for yourself, then people start to notice you and remember you and start talking about you online and offline. So to to get that happening, but mainly to do it in a fun way, because if marketing has to be part of your business, it has to be ongoing, it has to be long term, and we're only going to stick to long term things if they're fun. Like, I don't do 1,000 burpees because even one isn't fun, but you know LinkedIn can be done in a lot of different ways, just like exercising can be done in a lot of different ways.
Yes.
And to find the right way for every person, that is, that's what I work on.
Okay. I did it 350 yesterday, by the way.
Oh, you're sick.
For me, it's like such a great workout. But yeah, so,
Burpees are sick, honestly.
but it is what you say. And I mean, in marketing as well, it's about consistency, right? So keep showing up and keep like doing the work. One post on LinkedIn is not gonna do magic. Like one burpee is not gonna do any magic for your fitness.
It isn't.
Um,
Uh,
sorry.
I thought I'd do one after this call, but if that's not going to do anything, I'll give up on it.
Yeah. Okay. Um, so what are like a turning point in your life, or like a pivotal moment in your life that you would like to share with us, and sorry, and talk about it in the light of Transformation Thursday. Sorry.
Yeah. So that's interesting, because obviously I've been thinking about this all week, right? And there's not been one
Mhm.
moment or thing, you think like, oh, when this happened, and plenty happened in life. And I think that is sort of how it went in my life, that there's been lots of smaller things, but with enough impact. So, for example, um, oh, probably. over 30 years ago. So I don't know. I was backpacking around Australia on my own, right? And at
Yeah.
first I thought, oh, this is so cool because you get into a hostel, into a dorm room, and there's some other girls, some total strangers. And there's always, every hostel I went to, someone would start a conversation. And when you backpack Australia, the conversation is always the same. Where are you from? Where have you already been? Where are you going to? But it doesn't matter. You start talking. And then after a few months, I got into a hostel and there was 3 girls in that dorm room and nobody said anything to me. And I was like, ew, grumpy bitches. And then I thought, or they are just as shy as I am.
uh,
So then I did the thing like, hi, hello, I'm Petra. Where are you from? Where have you been? And but that realization that it wasn't all the others were super friendly and these were stuck up bitches.
mhm.
Others were more social. And here, but that realization that I'm shy, I don't usually start the conversation. Once it started, I'm cool. That's why I love public speaking, because people want to listen to me. And then afterwards, they'll come talk to me and I don't have to do the awkwardly hanging around thing with my cup of tea in the corner. But I think so that life lesson already influenced that if I'm scared of something, maybe other people are too. And if I enjoyed how other people interacted with me, maybe I should do that to others as well. So I think that was one of the first moments that
Yeah.
still, still impacts how I behave in social situations today.
Yeah, it's quite interesting how you say that that like such a small, like let's say relatively small moment really changed how you started to interact with people, um, and that you had a realization out of that encounter with these 3 girls. um,
Yeah.
and what I also find fascinating about these things, and that is like this for you was like a pivotal moment, but for these girls it was probably
Nothing.
yeah, exactly.
Because I was just that friendly person that all the other people in my travels had been to me.
Yeah,
And I think what makes it a pivotal, or if you want, transformational
yeah,
moment is not so much what happened, but my awareness around what happened. Because that awareness is what led to me realizing that in social situations, you don't have the friendly, welcoming people and the, stuck up, whatever people, but you have the socially adept people and the ones like myself who are a bit more shy. To realize that, um, so I think that was as small as it seemed. And I mean, I don't know if you want another one, but I'm going to give
yeah.
it to
Go
you
for it.
anyway. Because another one is totally business related, right?
Yeah.
Um, I started my own business as a side hustle. I was
Mhm.
working in an organization where the financial management wasn't going exactly as it should have been. So we were at a point where they were going to let go of 20 to 25% of the people. We were only about 100 people. And I was on my first 1-year contract. So anyone who knows the Dutch system, we used to get a 12-month contract and then you'd be made permanent. But this was just in the time where organizations could give you 3 1-year contracts, right? And so, of course, the easiest way of letting people go is not renewing any temporary contracts. So I thought, oh,
Mhm.
shit. And I was stressing, I'm a single mom, I've got a mortgage, I was in social work, part-time, so it wasn't as if I was earning a lot and all that stuff. And in the end, after 5 of the most stressful months of my life, 2 temporary contracts got renewed. It was myself and someone else. And in this time, a lot of people had said to me, oh, you should start working for yourself. And I was like, no, you should start working for yourself because you're so good. And I was like, good at what? I'm good at training, but I didn't have I had a really career with lots of changes. I didn't have a really strong background in one thing. So train the trainer would have been the only thing then. But when my contract got renewed, I thought, I'm not going to go through this again. Two things happened. One was I sort of done the math and think, okay, worst case scenario, lose my job, lose the house. In Amsterdam, you don't get a rental place before you've waited for like 15, 17 years. So I thought, I'll just go move wherever in the country where there's no waiting list for rental places, and I'm gonna, be a checkout chick at the local supermarket, and you get some government assistance, and I'll probably be better off than I am working anyway. So I'd sort of worked that out. But then I thought, okay, I've got my worst case scenario plan. But what if I lose my job? Maybe now that I still have it for a year, I should start my own business.
Mm-hmm.
So that I've got a year and I've got something to fall back on. So it was a side hustle and it was fun. And, and then clients came and money came and I was like, oh, looks like 4 weeks in Thailand instead of 1 week in Spain, and
Yeah.
then after
Or
that, I got made permanent. So it just stayed that way. But then the big change was when at some stage I did move from day job and side hustle to going full on business owner, that the first 2 years my mindset hadn't changed. I was still treating it like monopoly money, yeah, except now I had to live on it. And of course, that's fun while it lasts, but most business owners reach a point where the clients don't just like, oh, there's a client. Where did that come from? Okay. So to start thinking as a business owner rather than just as a trainer, that was in hindsight pivotal. At the time it was more like, okay, time to take things more seriously. In hindsight it was pivotal because it's also changed how I work with my clients. Even though everybody knows me as the LinkedIn trainer, I now go 3 steps back. Like, I can help you become so visible, la-di-da-di-da, but what are you even selling? And is that bringing enough money? Should we package it up a bit or sharpen it or this and that? So in that way, I guess business-wise, that's been really pivotal because it came out of necessity to stay afloat and then actually change the services that I offer my clients.
yeah. So what sometimes I ask, like, would you rather not have experienced like all the insecurity with the job loss or the threat of losing your job, being made redundant, uh, and have that safety, or like have to go through, let's say, that misery to now have what you have now?
Um, Look, I don't think anyone likes to be miserable or
Mm-hmm.
stressed. I don't tend to dwell on those things too much. I'm sort of like, okay, so this is what's happening. This is what my life's like, and move on with it. Because I've learned that that's the biggest waste of energy, especially that time when I did allow it to stress me out. I mean, the fact that I was also responsible for a child, that made it a little bit different, right? It's easy for me to say, oh, I'll just move out to some tiny village in the middle of nowhere and who cares? But I think, a fair cliche, but everything we experience in life ultimately helps to become who we are.
Mm-hmm.
And without being all dramatic, that's been a lot in the past 55 years. If I talk to someone and if I was to say, oh, yeah, and when I was this or this happened, that, and they'd be in total shock. Whereas to me, it'd be like, oh, yeah, and yesterday I went to the supermarket and forgot to take tea. I could just rattle it off like that. But if you look where I'm at now, and, I don't know where I would have been if my life had been a bit more cruisy. So I
Mm-hmm.
can't compare. And I know what it's given me where I am now. So I think I'm fine with it. I think the biggest thing is, and it's easier said than done, but anyone, if you're going through a lot of shit, if you can sort of disconnect yourself from the really oh, poor me kind of emotions. Like 3 years ago when I got really sick and I couldn't go walking, and everybody knows apart from drinking tea, I walk. And, I could manage 6 minutes max to go
Mhm.
outside. So I could be really all miserable about it. Or I haven't read that many books in years that I then read in 3 months, So I've really reached the point where, yeah, I'm almost this sickeningly happy person like that sees what comes out of things. So yeah, if you really said, would you have preferred not to have it? I would have preferred not to feel like that. But
Mhm.
I have no idea how else, if things didn't happen, how my life would have gone then. I don't want to be because where I used to work, because I'm not the youngest, and people my age that work there, there's still people there who've worked there for 20 years. And I'm like, that's not what we do these days anymore, You sort of move on after 4 years, even in a different role or in a different organization, and these careers where people stay in the same job for 20, 30 years. So in that respect, I think I'm really glad that I didn't sort of leave by choice, but yeah, I think it's all worked out for the good.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. No, and I mean, I get that, and sometimes we look at these things as uh, a curse, or and then they turn into a blessing, or and we never know, of course, have we not gone through those times or those moments, who we would have been, and
Yeah,
something else might have happened, that we then would have to work ourselves through. Um, and I mean, one of the things that I went to a webinar of Byron Katie one time, and one of the things that she says is accepting what is the shortest way to happiness. Um, and that's really like coming to terms with whatever is happening to you in the moment,
yeah,
and say, when you cannot walk, okay, yeah, that's you can fight that you cannot walk, but you can also choose to read, I don't know, 100 books. I
yeah,
don't know how many you read. Um,
yeah,
and is that now, is it fun that you cannot walk? No, it isn't. But it's also what you have to deal with. Um,
yeah. But you know what the fun bit about it is?
mhm.
When slowly your energy comes back, when one day you realize that you no longer have to catch the bus to the supermarket because you can do the 12-minute walk again, even though then catching the bus back, because that would be too much. Or a first time, because I live in Amsterdam, right? But for people who know the city, I live near the outskirts. So one of my walks, I come past a bit of a farm and a pasture and some sheep and stuff, and there's suburbs all around it. But there's no shortcuts. The only way I can do that is on a 40-minute walk. And the first time I walked there again, I was so happy because I still didn't have all my energy back. So it actually took an hour and a half, but that, like, holy fuck, look at me. I can walk for 90 minutes, It's like, so, so yeah, in a way, in the moment, it may not be fun, but getting all these little milestones afterwards where you suddenly become fully aware, like, oh, I can do this again. Oh, look at me, it's like, yeah. So it's really funny. There's comments saying, now all I'm going to think about is what those things are you can't share all about. Oh, so Pete Wallace, it's not can't, it's just like we have a time limit, and I choose where we go with this conversation. Yeah. So you just keep thinking about it.
Okay. What did I want to ask you? Um, yeah. Oh, yeah. And like when we were like before we went live, we talked about you having no fear of speaking in public. Um,
Yeah,
and I would love to hear a little bit more about that, because, I mean, as I said, I don't mind speaking in public, but I always tend to let it get a little bit nervous. Once I get going, it's okay. But I just, was wondering, what is your magic touch, or why you don't have that?
I wish I knew because I've never had it.
Uh huh.
It's like, ask someone else, not me, why
Uh,
they're not scared of spiders. You know,
uh,
they probably say because they're harmless. But yeah, fun story. When I started my business,
yeah.
because it was a side hustle, so there was no urgency to get money. So I thought, okay, if I'm just going to be the next, LinkedIn trainer out there, I need to set myself apart. So I thought I need some kind of event, and it needs to be in a recognizable venue. So anyone who knows Amsterdam, there's a restaurant thing. It's called the Bali. It's right in the main square of Amsterdam. It's in lots of TV shows. So I rented the room there. Um, I got speakers to pay to be on stage, so they were sort of like sponsors kind of thingy. I sold tickets cheaply, and when I needed 60 people to fill the room, and when I had 40, I just dragged all my friends in for like $10. Um, but I was doing everything, right? From organizing it, from getting the speakers, booking the room, organizing the catering, and all that. And so then, when I was about to go to bed the night before, I was like, "Huh, I'm the main speaker. What should I talk about?" And it's like I was just like, "Oh yeah, let's think about that." But it really worked because a friend of mine was a documentary maker, and he filmed everything. And you film for half a day and you get 5 minutes out of it, but still, that video. Um, yeah, because he did when people were entering and people were wearing suits and ties. It's like, I don't wear that shit. Maybe I was still wearing a jacket then because I didn't know that showing up as yourself is ultimately
Uh,
going to sell more. But so, yeah, why don't I have fear of public speaking? I have no idea. I don't do, because they say, oh, just picture the audience naked. I mean, really? How can you do public speaking when you look at them and think, I don't know. I don't think that would be a pretty picture to try and imagine all this. So I don't do things. I don't do tricks. Yeah, just sorry, can't help you there. Just
okay. Well, I mean, great story. I'm very happy for you that you do not have that fear. I see that Ilyana has a question. Which was your main unique skill to start your business as a side hustle back then?
oh, that's easy. It's training. Like the
Okay.
topic doesn't matter. I've done so much training all of my life. I've been teaching guys how to become truck drivers, motor mechanics, teaching children how to swim. Like anything, if someone can explain it to me, I can teach it. I can train it. So that, and I think that's sort of like the public speaking, isn't it? Um, these skills for me made it really easy, and because it was a side hustle, I didn't have to have business sense or business skills back then. Because I my day job, I reduced the hours over the years,
Uh-huh.
but it still made sure that in the day job I earned just enough to cover all the bills, so that the money in the business could stay in the business. I could either at some stage take some courses when I felt like it, or like I said, if I only had to go by the income for the day job, it would be 2 weeks holidays fairly close to home. And then with the side hustle, look, my daughter said, "Oh, looks like we're going to Thailand again this year." But it's a great question. Oh, sorry, I look at the chat, but whoever's watching is actually there at the camera. So great question. My main skills were being able to explain things to people and not be scared to speak to people, as long as the other one makes the first move. But people do when they become your client. They've made the first move, right?
Yeah. Okay. So I'd like to take it into the next part of this live,
Yeah.
and to see, like, how do you deal with like change in your life, and how do you, I mean, we tend to resist positive and negative change. We think it's only the negative change, but even the positive change we resist. um, what is your insight around change, or how, I mean, I'm asking maybe a lot of questions.
No, that's
How do you
okay.
deal with change with your clients?
Change with what do you mean by change with my clients?
So, I mean, change with your clients. If you have, like, you train them, or you get them to do something new,
Yeah.
and they might resist it. How do you deal with
Oh,
that?
that's easy. I just tell them, why did you pay me all this money? So now just do what I tell you. Um, But no,
Would
I
that
do it a little
work?
bit nicer, but that is what it comes down to, isn't it? It's like,
Yeah.
no, I have my background is in social work, right? So I
Mhm.
know how to actually be empowering with people and all that. And I did a coaching qualification last year as well to sort of build onto that social work background. So what I tend to do, because like we said at the beginning, if you're going to use LinkedIn or anything for your marketing, it's going to be ongoing. You need to enjoy it. So I really try and find with that person where that resistance sits
Mhm.
and how we can overcome that and overcome it. Well, with the work that I do with my clients, overcoming the resistance doesn't have to always be change how they feel about that. If someone's resisting doing videos,
Mhm.
I can explain why it might be beneficial to do the odd video. I can tell them you don't have to be face on video. If you want to, you could just do something with slides. But ultimately, if someone really doesn't want to do video, well, then don't. Because if I'm going to make people do a video, then they're going to stress over that so much that they do nothing. Whereas if they love writing, there's other people who say they're bad at writing, but they're good at talking. Well, talk at your computer, have other AI or some other transcript running, and everything you said is in writing. You just have to edit it a little bit. And I'm saying a little bit because I used to be one of those grammar Nazis because I love language. But now you find a lot of my things are not fully grammatically correct because I love to write as I speak, way more casual, etc. So that's why if you speak, and whether you use a transcribing service or if you can articulate clearly enough, you can even use the speech to text thingy that even words and everything has. You don't have to fully edit the things, only the things where they don't understand you. If I ever transcribe anything, not once has it gotten my name right. Apparently, I can't pronounce my own name. So, you know. But yeah, so helping my clients overcome their resistance to change is part of finding out what their resistance is, because sometimes it is something they actually want to overcome. Part of it is if it's something they really don't want to do, find something else. But it's also about, well, what is the end result you want to get?
Mhm.
Because if you want to get, I don't know, conversations with people on LinkedIn every week that you could, that there's at least 3 you could take into private messages because it could lead to being a client, then you need to do a lot more than if you want that to happen once a month. And so that is stuff where, yeah, overcoming the resistance to change can also be focusing on the desired outcome and what is that worth to you? Is that worth you doing this?
Mhm.
And if not, are you okay with different end results? Because it's not always bad. You just got to be realistic about what you want to achieve and what you're willing to do for that.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. And how is it that, let's say, showing up in your own life? How do you deal with change in your own life?
Mm, I think it's a bit like when you earlier asked me about, when you have some setbacks or difficult moments, I just sort of go with it. And often I don't even realize something big is happening because, when things happen to you, that's just your life and that's how you function. And then in hindsight, you think. But for example, when I moved to Australia and that was my life. And then a few years later, I met someone who'd kept their apartment in their home country and who was always like, oh, yeah, because if my marriage falls through, then. And she was still sort of being in both countries. Whereas when I moved to Australia, I had no plans to ever leave. I had moved, I had gone, that was my life. And even though I was living in the tropics, which is fucking hot in the first year, I didn't quite like that. So you can wince about that. Or you can think, well, shopping center has free air conditioning, the library has free air conditioning, and the museum is free and has air conditioning.
Mhm.
It's like things like that. And also when I moved to the Netherlands, yeah, there's a lot of things to miss about Australia. Did I regret moving? Maybe. Is there a point dwelling on it? No. So I think I just go full on in when there's change, whether it's good or bad. I just dive straight in and deal with it. And then sometimes I reflect, but I don't overthink it up front or when I'm in the middle of it. That
Okay.
makes sense.
And is there like, do you have like maybe then like an area where you would desire to have a change and it's not really like happening or
Um, there is something, but that is something that I don't have any influence of or control over.
Mhm.
So I think, what do they call it? The locus of control or the circle of control, it's like certain things, the weather you don't have control over, how you respond to it, you do.
Yeah.
And I think with bigger things in life, I've gotten quite good at that to sort of think, yeah, there's something, and I thought, that was so nice. That was different,
Mhm.
but it's not, and it's not in my control. And I know that someday it will change, and so yeah. Or again, yeah, I know it sounds really corny, it really cheesy, like, oh yeah, just don't stress over it. But I've I've gotten beyond that point, and not on purpose. It was 3 years ago when I got so sick, and a lot of other things had happened, and then I got so sick, and then my mom was, oh no, now you've got this, and I just laughed about it. I thought, I don't have any more capacity for worry or stress. I've used it all up. It's
No.
gone. And that's why I had to laugh so much, because that's a crazy thought to have, yeah, right? Not to do any serious work on it or whatnot. Just suddenly have that realization, okay, instead of this is it, it's too much, I can't cope anymore. It's like, okay, this is it. My quota of worry and stress and things, I've used it all up. It's finished, no more. And somehow that still rings true 3 years later. So let's see if it sticks forever.
How do you think this becomes easier over time, growing older? Or
I definitely think so.
okay.
I mean, this sort of happened, but I definitely think that, yes, I was going to say, yes, when you get older, you're just not all that worried about stuff anymore. But then I know some people, generation older than myself, who have that amazing skill to worry about everything. It's
Yeah.
like, I never lie awake at night unless it's summer and it's too hot, and you sort of get that really tired and you can't sleep. You got to switch on the bloody fan, but then you're too tired. So now we have fans in our bedroom with a remote control, lifesaver. But yeah, other than that, so part of it, I seem to have a happy nature. And
Mhm.
I don't know where it came from, because I used to be a bit more insecure and a bit more of a worrier. So if that is with growing older, or if it's, like I said, the amount of worry that one can have in a life, I've used up mine. Maybe I didn't have that many. I don't know. But yeah, but if for me personally, it feels as if a lot of things become easier as I get older, as in not caring um, about other people's opinions, about not worrying. And it's also, this is interesting because you and I are both business owners. When I stop thinking about how other people might perceive me, business goes way better, right? Since I no longer wear a jacket, because that's not me. And it's not as if people would have looked at me and thought, oh, that's so not you. But since I only show up in t-shirts or hoodies if it's cold, um, And I do that when I deliver corporate training in companies in person as well. I'm just like so over it. I'm like, well, did they hire me for my fashion sense? Wrong person. Go to my daughter. That's the fashionista, right? Or did they hire me for my knowledge?
Mhm.
And once you get that confidence that you can walk in there and think, look, so I'm wearing jeans and a t-shirt, um, then people totally accept that too, and it resonates, and you even get better clients.
Yeah,
So, but there's a
I
really
love.
nice comment there from Stefan. Oh, that's just being really compliments, not a question. Sorry, boss, I interrupted you.
No, that's not a problem. No, what I liked what you said was you interrupted me. Now I forgot it. What was it? Oh yeah, yeah, about being like it was like when you're in your head, look, or like in your own little world or bubble, that business is not going anywhere, And when the moment you get out of your head and like into action and like into like interacting with people, meeting, being who you are, then business starts flows.
Yeah,
And it's like a constant like back and forth, and sometimes these periods that you're in your head are longer than you want, and then or it takes you much longer to notice the trigger and be like, oh, okay, I'm in my head again, and then get into action, and then you see like quickly things come back.
yeah,
um and that's, I mean, that's of course not only um in business, but in all, it applies to all areas of life. Okay. Yeah, so I really like that. I'd like to shift the focus again to more like what are you creating for your future, um, and what is it that what is it that you're working on?
um, I think, having come from a social work background
Hmm.
and then started my own business, and then after a while, I sort of almost felt bad about just trying to make money only for me. Well, me and the daughter and the cat, but So then I have sort of shifted, and which I'm way, way more vocal and visible about online, the kind of clients that I like to work with, so that they still do the good in the work in the world, right? So that um, by me supporting them, they are helping a lot of other people, and so I'm more and more conscious about that. Like at the moment, anyone who, I mean, a lot of people miss it, but on my LinkedIn profile, and you've got the about section, and down the bottom, I have a really bold statement. It says something like, "Oh, and I'm opinionated. I don't think there's anything wrong with people of color or the transgender community or this or that, or I don't believe that guns are as important as your toothbrush." So I've really, really got an outspoken statement there. Um, and I think that is really what's guiding my future, that I'm way more like, these are the things I believe in. These are the things I stand for. And whether that's in my private life, where bloody kids throwing recycling in my rubbish bin, I've trained them well because I got one, but it feels like three. Um, so in my private life, I really focus way more on what is important to me and what isn't. And in my work life, I do that also by being outspoken about the things I stand for. And if that's going to lose me a potential client, then that is actually really good news, because that probably would not have been a client that I would have liked to work with. So that is where my future, my business and stuff is actually going.
Okay, great. And I love you. I know. I mean, I love a good bold statement, and I think you're right. If that doesn't land, let's say with your potential client or within the relationship, it's not just like landing over there, but it's something between the two of you. You will never be able to. At least that's what I believe in for myself, and I think what I hear in you, it's kind of the same. You'll never be able to show your like 100% you, and
Yeah.
give them 100% of you, and that, yeah, in the end, it doesn't work. It's not beneficial for either one of you.
So, what is something that would be a deal breaker for you? What is something that if you knew that about a person,
Uh-huh.
you would not take them on as a client?
I was asked that question the like the other day, if I would um like work for someone who is in the, let's say, in the weapon industry,
Mm-hmm.
or a CEO of a cigarette company.
Yeah.
Um and it's like one of my main values is, is a world where everyone can be as they choose, and true diversity and inclusivity uh, are really key for me, with no one left behind. So
Mm-hmm.
if I would say, uh, yeah, not the gun manufacturer, not the cigarette manufacturer, not the well, whatever, then I'm excluding like so many people. Um,
Mm-hmm.
so based on that, I don't think I would not, they would not be, I would still, no, based on that, I would still accept them as my client. What wouldn't work for me is if they are not willing to look at themselves as, like, basically they don't want to do the work. I'm not saying
Mm-hmm.
they need to get out of the weapon industry or out of the cigarette industry, but it's like, I can't work with you if you're not willing to do the work, basically, or if you're not,
Yeah.
uh, if someone is just like argumentative for the sake of being argumentative all the time. It's like, no, this doesn't work, you know.
Yeah.
Or I had one client, for example, who was extremely angry all the time. That doesn't work for me either. It's like, I don't know, when I show up for a session whether you're angry or not, or like, and that just, yeah, smashing down the phone, that kind of stuff. That doesn't work for me. That's more of a problem for me than someone
Yeah.
maybe being in the wrong industry, or
Yeah.
what is like, I mean, what is the wrong industry? um what is it for you?
Yeah, for me, it's quite outspoken, right? Like once someone reached out to me, so I checked their profile, and this is how many years ago? Was that 2016? I don't know. But the opening of their about section, this was just after an election that someone did win. Um, on their profile, it said that they had spent the last 12 months proudly campaigning for Trump and all that. And I'm just not even going to go there because I know. So, yeah, I'm not as inclusive as you. Um, because I know that I'm judgmental in certain ways. Um, I'm open to have conversations with people, but also people that are um, openly homophobic, transphobic, racist. If I see that in their post or in their comments, it's like, nah. Because with my work, especially when I work with business owners, I help them grow their business, earn more money, and all that. But I'm thinking, I don't want to support those kind of people. But the interesting thing is what you said about with people being angry and stuff. Because coming from social work background, I still remember in my first, it wasn't even a job, when you do your student internship, and it was in a local community center, and I was doing some after school activities, but it was not the after school care where you actually, kids come voluntarily. And at the end, it was time to pack up and stuff. And this 4-year-old starts going off at me with words I probably can't say out loud here, but you effing see and this and that. As a 4-year-old. And I was like, why are you speaking to me like this? And I thought, and why not? That's how mom speaks to me. And I thought, well, yeah. How
uh
does a 4-year-old know any better?
yeah.
And that can be tricky in adults because, yeah, you think with you as a coach, when people come to you, that they've made a conscious choice that they want to work on something. So I can understand from your perspective, like, well, if there's still so much there that they actually need to deal with before they can even get outcomes from coaching sessions with you, that also makes a change. I think it's also why I moved from social work to training, because I'm still really helping people, but because they pay for it out of their own pocket, they're motivated to make the change and to implement. Whereas in social work, I think 2 out of 10 had that drive and motivation, and the other 8 are more like, oh, poor me, and it's not my fault, and you got to help me. And I'm like, nah, not enough of that. I'm over it.
No. I mean, I must say, being a gay man, I don't think I'll attract a lot of homophobic clientele. But yeah, I mean, I would like definitely have a conversation. It's like you know this, why do you want to work with me? You know,
Oh, but boss, I
yeah.
think I think gay. That's so sick. But you're different because I know you. You know, and all foreigners have to go as well, except for Mohammed, because he's my neighbor. He's the good one.
Exactly.
You know what it's like.
Of course, of course, of course. I know it. But yeah, so yeah, I hope I answered that question.
Yeah,
Um,
good.
I have not been there yet that I had to really make that choice consciously. Um, but yeah, we'll see. That would be
Yeah.
very interesting. Um, okay. Um, Anything you're developing for your clients that you would like to discuss or
Um. Well, I've sort of developed it, and there's at least one person here who can vouch for it. But
uh-huh.
I've, been in business for 12 years now,
Yes.
part side hustle. And, you go through sort of waves. You think you do everything only one-on-one, and then you think groups are best, and you think online is best, and blah, blah, blah. So a year ago or something, I've actually combined it because I have found some people do really well with online course and be self-disciplined and whatnot. Other people need a bit more support with implementing. For some people, that's just a kick at the bum, knowing that there's someone watching you. For some people, it's really helping to talk through it a bit. So, and that's how I've combined the different aspects of the online thing and the coaching and the private community is still evolving a bit. So, it's also, yeah, it's a bit broader than LinkedIn, like we said earlier. So these bits are still all evolving a bit as I go, but it's not in a sense of oh yeah, I'm working on this big thing and I'm going to announce it in 2 months. I haven't got anything like that happening. No.
Okay. Totally fine. Totally fine.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So if people want to reach out to you, how can they reach you? And
LinkedIn is the best way
yeah.
because that's the
Okay.
easiest to find me. That's where I show up the most. And yeah.
Okay. Petra, I really want to thank you for this wonderful conversation, sharing some of your insights, your bold statements, and sharing. And thank you for sharing your cup of tea with me. Um, yeah, we'll leave you here. Uh, Next week I'll have another guest. Um, I'm very happy to have you here next week as well. Thank you, everyone, and see you again. Thank you,
All
Petra.
right. Thanks, everyone. Thanks, boss.
Bye.